Right. Cherish your middle name. Ben, I don't have a middle name. I literally don't have a middle name. What's really weird is I was brought up Catholic and hello, and Catholics and the Catholic faith, especially when I was growing up in the tradition, you have a middle name, and then when you get what's called confirmed, you get like an added name, right? Well, I grew up Catholic, and I don't have any middle names. So, Great War. Remember when I call on you? Derek's going to tell me the answer. He's going to tell me what's this have to do with our study of World War I. Number one across, German Kaiser. Go ahead.
Wilhelm.
Who was that?
Was he the president of Germany?
Okay, he was the Kaiser, the president of Germany, the leader, the commander in chief, the one that made all the decisions, especially after that Serbian assassination of Ferdinand, and Austria-Hungary is like, hey, you're gonna pay Serbia, and Germany's like, and Serbia was kind of like apologizing, and Germany's like, you don't have to get linked to that. Germany was like the instigator, right? So a lot of this falls at the feet of Kaiser Wilhelm. French premier, Jake. Who was the leader of France? See how good your French is.
Oh, Clemenceau.
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 I think the accent's supposed to be on the so. S-E-A-U.
Clemenceau.
Clemenceau. So he is just the leader of France that's making all the decisions for France. Oh, by the way, no, that's not just it. What was in parentheses next to his name in the notes? How good's your photographic memory? Can you picture the notes? It says Georges, it has the S on the end, George Clemenceau, and in parentheses it says, what did he bring to the table at the Treaty of Versailles? Yeah.
And Kaiser.
That was England. Yeah.
You wanted revenge.
Revenge. The French wanted revenge. They hated the Germans long before World War I. And after World War I, what the Germans did, destroying their country basically, they wanted revenge. That was what Clemenceau brought to the table. Number 10 across, Verity. I ask you, who was public enemy number one for the United States when Wilson took office? This Mexican public enemy number one.
I don't have that one.
Anybody? Case.
Pancho Villa.
Pancho Villa. Why was he public enemy number one? He was stirring up revolution in Mexico, and not only that, he was one of those, this is early 1900s, a couple generations after the Mexican-American War. What happened after that war? We gained all of the Southwest United States. And who thinks they still, okay, it's kind of like France and Germany. The people of Mexico, they're like, hey, that land was stolen from us by the Americans in the Mexican-American War. There's still people in Mexico today and there's still people living in America today that hasten illegal immigration across the border that they believe shouldn't even exist because there's this idea called reconquista. What do you think that means? Reconquista. To reconquer. The idea is that the Mexicans have every right to flow into this land because, after all, it's rightfully theirs. I always think it's funny when you do that because then you have to keep going back. And when do you stop going back? When do you stop going back? Whose land is it, right? Like with this France and Germany thing. This land is your land. No, this land was our land, then it was their land. Well, how far are you going to go back? Right? But they always want to stop when it was theirs. Does that make sense? Anyway, this Pancho Villa, he actually crossed the border into New Mexico and killed American citizens. Did we ever find him? We never did. We sent multiple expeditions, people from our military, to go down to Mexico to find this dude, and they always were able to protect him, always find him. But he ended up dying in a civil war type thing anyway. Number 14, the leader of the American Expeditionary Force, the AEF, was a man named General John Pershing, but he had a special nickname. What was it, David?
I do not know.
Oh my goodness. What did we spend the last 3 weeks doing? Jake?
Blackjack.
Blackjack. Jonathan Mitchell said that one time his grandma called him Jack or something. You know that Jack's a nickname for John, right? You at least know that, that's where, yeah, that's where Jack comes from. I have an Uncle Jack, his name's John. Did you know that? I'm sure today some people are just born and they call him Jack, but historically, traditionally, Jack is a nickname for John. All right, and by the way, John Pershing was not black. He was a white man, but Black Jack, I don't know if he liked to play cards or what. Not that you would know anything about Black Jack playing cards, right, Caleb? Number 20, Wilson's fervent desire. What was Wilson's number one? This was going to be his legacy, his contribution to the world. McKenna, the League of Nations. What was kind of like ironic about that whole deal? Like Wilson's big deal was the League of Nations. That's what he wanted to sell to the world. That was going to bring global harmony and world peace. Do you pray for world peace? She's being honest, like I really don't ever pray. But isn't that like a common thing?
Yeah.
Like pray for world peace, right? That was Wilson was going to bring global harmony and world peace through this idea of a League of Nations. Hey, as long as we're always communicating, everything's all right, right? What was ironic about it?
Other countries joined it, but the US.
The United States never even joined it. That was like his big thing. And our Congress said, nah, because we went into that isolation mode, right? Number 22, a Mexican nickname for an American. If you go across the border and you're Caucasian, they'll call you a gringo. If you never heard of that term, now you know the gringo. And just my little editorial commentary, that's not an offensive word. And it shouldn't be. It's just funny, gringos, right? But it's just, what also is funny is if there's other names, labels attached to other people, they're offensive. So that's not supposed to be offensive. You understand? You get the gist of what I'm saying? Only certain people are allowed to be offended. We're not part of that. Certain people. Editorial over. Back to number 24. Assassinated Archduke. You could read that two ways, but only one answer will fit. If you read that, this person assassinated the Archduke, or it was the assassinated Archduke. Thankfully, only one fits, right? Caleb, who is it?
Ferdinand.
What was his first name? Usually you remember it because it's alliterative. His name was Archduke Franz Ferdinand. I'm so glad Bella said, oh yeah, when I said alliterative.
Yeah.
And I never know what you guys know. You know what that means, alliterative, Seth?
No.
Well, see, he's a freshman, you're a sophomore. So maybe in the time from here till there, you'll learn what alliterative means. Mrs. Martin taught that, I hope. Do you use it in your writing? Listen, it's very effective. You see it all the time in advertising. One of my favorite pastors,
2 words.
they always set up their sermon and they use alliteration with all their points.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. You could have put like
No, I didn't.
Confuse me.
No, Dina, the whole point, see, it's called a puzzle. There's supposed to be some cognitive dissonance.
I know, and then I figured that
Do
out.
you know what cognitive dissonance is?
Like where you know because of what you learned that it would be.
Well, cognitive dissonance is like purposely causing a little bit of like.
Oh,
what?
that's not very nice.
Yes, it is.
No,
'Cause
it's
it's-
not.
You want everything to be easy.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be great, Jake, if you came to school and all the information you already knew?
No, it would be nice if you just had
Or,
it all.
wait, no, it actually,
Help me say,
no, it
It would
wouldn't,
be boring.
because then you wouldn't go to school.
what a waste.
Then it would be a waste.
All right, Ferdinand was the answer, right? By the way, what's significance? Why is he on the crossword puzzle? Mackenzie, why is Franz Ferdinand a name that goes down in history?
Because it was kind of like, things that are like leading to the war.
Europe was considered a powder
Okay.
keg, and that assassination was the SP spark that lit and exploded all throughout Europe. Number 25, the acronym for causes. instead of having, by the way, on the test, spoiler alert, I mean, I think this is obvious, right? You're gonna have to know the four causes, the four main causes that historians have said. These are the four things, the general ideas, not a whole lot of other details in there, but MAIN. These are the four main causes of World War I. M is for militarism. A is for alliances. I is for imperialism. N is for nationalism. Now, those are all separate things, but they kind of interweave, right? Militarism and nationalism go together. Militarism and imperialism go together. The alliances and imperialism go together. So they're interwoven, but four distinct reasons. You had countries that were really wanting to build up their militaries. They had all this new technology, right? One of the ways we're going to put this technology to use is through the military to be able to defend ourselves or conquer other places still, because there was this thing called imperialism. Countries were still trying to, throughout the world, lay claim to certain places that no other country had laid claim to. I mean, there might have been natives there, but nobody really laid claim to it, right? Anyway, that's a different story. But so that imperialism was at play, that's involved with militarism, right? And nationalism, we want to be the best country. And alliances, we're going to maintain our status because you and I are going to be friends in case she tries to attack us, right? Because she's trying to be the best too. Is there something wrong with that? Wait. Anyway, I still am. Where am I at? 28. Principe was a member. Gustavo Principe was a member of a larger organization, a really big organization, a very powerful, influential organization in Serbia that were really upset with the rule of Austria-Hungary and Austria-Hungary's overbearance, not only on the little sliver of a country that Serbia had, but the Serbian nationalists that were living in other places, and they formed this Verity, Black Hand, an organization. Why would they call it that? Secret, right? The Black Hand, dark, secret, shadows. An organization that's in the shadows, working behind the scenes, so that because of course, if they're in the light, they'll be persecuted, right? So they work in the shadows, in the dark, and they're the hand that's moving, that's trying to put an end to Austria-Hungary's dominance. May 17th, 1915. By the way, Principe was the one that assassinated Ferdinand, right? That's the big deal there. I'm going to start going faster. May 7th, 1915. What was that disaster, Serenity? What happened? What happened on May 7th, 1915?
The Lusitania or something.
So what's that?
The German U-boats sunk. It's like a passenger ship.
Yeah. And were there Americans on it?
Yeah.
So America probably entered the war right after that, right? What?
No.
The Germans sank a ship that was not a military ship. It had 128 Americans on it, and our American president didn't immediately retaliate?
Yes.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing.
Oh, thank you. True. Can you imagine? If that happened today, if another country did something to that effect, wouldn't we expect our president to suggest that we retaliate somehow?
Yeah.
But Wilson was an
Ideal.
idealist. He was like, well, we can fix this another way. We can, because remember, his whole idea is he's gonna be the guy that brings peace to the world. Remember his idealism. All we gotta do, we just gotta convince these people that American democracy, if everybody would just accept that the world would be a better place, which is kind of true, right? Am I right?
Maybe.
You don't believe it? Wait, is there someone here who doesn't believe that if all the countries lived according to the liberties bestowed on us by our Constitution, the world would be a better place? Next, the final battle. What was the final battle of World War I, Scott? The forest in France known as the Argonne. And that's where the armistice was signed on, what was that sign? There's a special thing about when the truce, the end of the fighting took place. David,
No, God, Lord, I will imagine the 11th hour.
the 11th hour and the 11th day of the 11th month, World War I came to an end. Two down, France, Britain, Russia. The Triple Entente. There were two alliances that were the biggest alliances, even though they were only made up of 3 countries each. The Triple Entente, Great Britain, France, and Russia. And the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy. What? What did Italy do? Oh, they didn't even fight with the Triple Alliance. They changed teams in the middle of the game. Right? They became part of the, what does a Triple Entente become known as? With a capital A, the Allies. And you'll start hearing of the Triple Alliance referred to as the Central Powers. Next, Wilson descriptor. What's a word that you would use, Jake, to describe Woodrow Wilson?
Ideally.
Idealist. Number 4, song exalting U.S. entry. Mackenzie, much to Emily's chagrin, this is now her alarm in the morning. Emily now has to wake up to no, that didn't happen. Casey,
Over there.
over there. That wasn't just popular in America. It was probably more popular in some ways in France, right? Because a lot of America was still against going into the war. But the French, they were so excited for us to be over there. 30 billion, I'm sorry. Yeah, $30 billion payments. What's that? $30 billion payments. By the way, 30 billion is a lot of money even today. But back then, according to today's money, I think it would be more like $1 trillion. Which you guys are being so sadly socialized and customized to hearing that word trillion, as if it's like, oh, million, billion, trillion. That's not much difference. How many, if I said 1 trillion minutes, when would that be?
200 years.
A year.
Billion.
See, this is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
20 years.
A billion years. That doesn't make
1,000
sense.
years.
32,000 BC.
Why is it BC?
If you tried to sit there and count, first of all, there is no 32,000 BC. But if you tried to count to 1 trillion, like this, one, I'll do my referee chop. 1, 2, get across the timeline. If you tried to count 1 second for every, can I say seconds or minutes?
You said minutes.
Yeah, I think it's minutes. But think about seconds even. How long would that take?
Probably 10 years. I don't
No.
know.
I just said it would
Just
be
said it.
32,000 BC to get to 1 trillion.
I don't care.
I lived it for
Is that your answer to
Don't
something you
care.
don't understand? You just said, I don't
Yes.
care.
You're good, silly.
By the way, a billion, listen, the difference between a billion and 1 trillion is a billion would only be 32 years ago. Right? So we talk about these numbers like, oh, million, billion, trillion. The difference between a billion and 1 trillion is 32 years ago or 32,000 years ago. Yeah. Oh, quadrillion. Right, then you got quintillion, sextillion, septillion, octillion, nonillion, decillion. I mean, you can't even fathom such a number. Can't fathom such a number as quadrillion once you get to a trillion. Anyway, how do we get off on that? Oh, these $30 billion payments, what about them? Why are they in the crossword puzzle? Caleb, what is with the $30 billion payments? By the way, Scott, this is something to pay very close attention to because it not only affects this test, it affects a test in a couple months on World War II. Bordenero, what about $30 billion payments?
Preparations.
Reparations, right? Big difference. Reparations coming from the word repair. Who's paying $30 billion, Caleb, as reparations after World War I? Germany. What's the reparation? All of the destruction you saw in the video in no man's land and all that destruction. Picture that being widespread, especially all throughout France. Who's doing the cleanup? Who's doing the rebuild? Do you think France is going to say, oh, well, time to clean up. All right, France, everybody, you got to raise your taxes because we got to rebuild the country after Germany destroyed it. No, remember they had revenge on their mind. That Germany was forced to pay $30 billion to reconstruct Europe. That's going to lead to 20 years later, less than that, some guy that rises up through the ranks of leadership in Germany. By the way, he fought in World War I, and he's got charisma for whatever reason, little dude. And he's able to get a lot of people to come to hear him speak, and he speaks in tones like this. Germans, fellow Germans, we are in this economic state. Our inflation is so high, our economy is so bad, because, by the way, now the worldwide Great Depression that we talk about, U.S. history, is affecting the whole world. So not only are they still paying off the war debt that's hurting their economy, now they're dealing with the Great Depression, and Adolf Hitler is able to convince most Germans that the reason for it is because that they're still paying for World War I, and those French and British and those Americans, even though they're across the pond, and anyone else that was involved in this punishment towards Germany. That's why your loaf of bread is $10 a loaf. That's why your children aren't being educated like they should be. It's because of what they've done to us. And Germany, all of Germany started saying, yeah, that's right. And then that leads to World War II. Now wait, before I go on, don't think that Mr. Franken's saying that Adolf Hitler was the responsibility of the French and the British. There's a difference between these two words, reason and excuse. You with me? When we start to learn about World War II, we'll talk about the reasons for World War II, right? The causes, the reasons. Overwhelmingly, one of the reasons is what happened at the Treaty of Versailles, making Germany pay for everything. Does that excuse Adolf Hitler or Germany for doing what they did in World War II? No. Is it a reason? Yes. Is it an excuse? No. You didn't turn your homework in because you didn't do it. Is that excused? Thankfully, you live in a world where the adults in your life are so beyond gracious, and it's unbelievable that even when you don't do it, you really don't have an excuse. But here's my reason. See, what had happened was, right, and then you give your story to the teacher or whoever, or your parents, and thankfully they usually forgive you and give you grace. But it really wasn't an excuse, was it? It was your reason. And most of the time, you're so good at it that you approach the teacher and the parent like, you really understand that you don't deserve this. It's really not an excuse, but here's my reason anyway. And they usually do that. Yes. Yes. All right, where we at? 1916 Republican candidate. You never heard of this guy? Yeah. Hughes, Charles Evans Hughes. He was almost president of the United States. You never heard of him. In fact, he was so close to being president, David, except in one state. This one state, a whole swath, if you remember, in red, from the Northeast to the Dakotas. And there was that one state that he didn't win. What was it? Ohio. The Blanket Sedition Acts. Sid, if you're involved in espionage, Sid, what would I call you? You'd be a spy. And by the way, those were passed because sedition means speaking illy or badly or in a way that might enable the enemy about your country. And they passed these laws because obviously they were worried about recent German immigrants siding with Germany, right? Hurting the American cause. Emily, is this the land of the free? Do we have a First Amendment right for free speech? Am I allowed to speak illy against my government without being imprisoned? Do you hear people every day talk badly about this president or that, right? So how is it okay for them to pass laws that make it so we can't speak negatively about our country in times of war, right? Is that okay? Is it still the land of the free if in times of war, you're not allowed to publicly raise sentiment against your own country? And most Americans would say, yeah. That was the Espionage and Sedition Acts. Nickname for a U.S. soldier. What they call the soldiers from the U.S. that came over to help fight the war. You remember that? They looked at their buttons on their uniform jackets. They go, hey, those look like doughboys, right? They look like dumplings. Of course, they're made of dough. Next, Wilson's campaign. Your answer is actually 6 words going down your crossword puzzle. Vanity. He kept us out of war, and then he did. Sergeant Alvin York. Remember his story? I hope. Watch the video on it. Very Christian man. Was not into war at all. Ends up being an incredible war hero. Took out 25 Germans single-handedly as they were firing at him. Snipe, 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 snipe. And to the point to where they're like, okay, we surrender. 132 Germans come out of the nest, and they find out, whoa, there was only really one of you causing all this damage to our company. German plan for quick victory. At the beginning of the war, gentlemen, here's the plan. You'll be home by the time the leaves fall. Remember when the war started? Anybody know? What month? August. Yeah. August of 1914. Oh, you'll be home by the time the leaves fall. It's going to be quick. We're going to go take Paris. No problem. Once we secure Paris, we'll turn our attention to the east. The Russians, they're not as committed as we are. They'll fall pretty easy. Germany will have back all the lands that we say are ours, and it's going to be over. That was the name of that general was. Schlieffen. 28th president, commander-in-chief of the U.S. Army during the war, Woodrow Wilson, right? There was a court case brought up because of these Espionage and Sedition Acts. And the person's name is Schenck, so that's how it gets that name, just like in Mississippi. I wanted to tell you about the Flanders Field, and I'm running out of time, so I won't go into the whole Mississippi case that's going on right now. It's named after the person. Anyway, Schenck sued the United States. The U.S. Supreme Court said, you know what? Congress can make laws. If there is clear and present danger to the United States because of the way you're speaking, you can be prosecuted for that. You're not allowed to use your First Amendment right to endanger all the rest of the American citizens, just like you're not allowed to go into a crowded theater and yell, fire! And have everybody go scrambling and trampling each other out of there, right? Schenck versus the United States. Synonym for truce. It used to be called not Veterans Day, but everybody, Armistice Day. Plans implemented by Hoover. Heatless, meatless, sweetless, wheatless, all of those days of rationing, that was under the administration, not the president, but they put this person in charge, Herbert Hoover, so they called it Hooverizing. The Mexican telegram, kind of almost like the final straw that broke the camel's back. Do you ever wonder where that came from? What was that final straw? The Mexican telegram, where Germany was trying to instigate Mexico, again, going back to that, hey, you'll get your territory back that was taken from you by those Americans if you would help us in this war effort, maybe keep America occupied so they don't come over here. That was called the Zimmerman telegram. Service system. The first U.S.-led victory. I said one word because you won't have to worry about the ST period. Nihil. And finally, what did they call German submarines? U-boats. I guess for now, just put this in your folder and then we'll watch a little. Wait, don't go yet. All right, we'll do it.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't let you leave our study of World War I with a, you go home, talk to your grandparents. Oh, they talk about Flanders Field. Can't let you do that. In Flanders Field. I feel so passionate, you're having fun, Steve. You know what I mean? Ben, you know? Hey, Ben.
Yes.
I heard something.
What did you hear?
I heard that amongst other impressive skills, that your dad used to be, or used to be. Seriously?
Damn, girl.
Boy, no, not.
How are you guys going?
I mean, it's not a teacher job,
I have to work on this. I was mentally scarred. Choir. He did something for it meant to be for the boys, but I saw instead of before.
I'm trying Evan and.
But instead of Michael went to college in choir yesterday and singing song and not
Can you just tell me?
Why not? We were all leaving lines and walking in, and we were riding and Max and the guys say bye.
Can you just tell me? I don't.
welcome, pre-algebra, on this first Friday in December.
See what I know? Sit on the ground.
By the way,